Think of long conflicts, and the Hundred Years' War usually comes to mind. But on the Iberian Peninsula, Christian and Muslim armies fought a massive war that spanned nearly 8 centuries. This 781-year conflict began as an accidental conquest, sparked by a small raiding party that inadvertently toppled a kingdom. In the year 711, the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal, was controlled by the Visigoths. They had set up their kingdom directly on top of the decaying remnants of the collapsed Roman Empire. On paper, the Visigothic state was highly centralized and possessed immense wealth. But below the surface, the kingdom was fractured, constantly undermined by bitter personal vendettas between competing noble families. King Roderick ruled a hollow state. His kingdom was heavily armored and dripping in gold, but desperately fragile on the inside, relying on political posturing to maintain order. Across the Mediterranean in Damascus sat the Umayyad Caliphate. By this point, they were the unrivaled global superpower of the medieval world, commanding massive resources and territory. This map shows their trajectory. Over decades, Arab armies pushed relentlessly west, overrunning Byzantine fortresses and securing North Africa. Along the way, they forced local Berber tribes to submit and convert to Islam. But Arab governors treated these newly recruited soldiers as second-class citizens. This created a logistical nightmare for the regional governor, Musa bin Nusayr. He now had tens of thousands of highly trained recruits, promised wealth and glory, but stuck fighting meaningless skirmishes against mountain tribes. Musa needed a distraction. He looked across the narrow strait of water toward the Visigothic kingdom and authorized a minor operation to appease them. The catalyst for history's longest war was a localized looting raid, authorized as a simple distraction for frustrated mercenaries. In 711, a Berber general named Tariq bin Ziyad crossed the water with 7,000 men. They landed on a steep, rocky cliff we now call Gibraltar. Tariq was entirely committed to the campaign. According to historical accounts, he ensured his soldiers couldn't reconsider the raid by burning his own ships right on the shore. They had to fight. Up north, King Roderick saw this raid as an opportunity. Marching a massive army south to crush a minor invasion was the perfect way to silence his doubting nobles and prove his legitimacy. Two entirely different mindsets collided. A small, desperate force fighting with zero escape options met a massive army assembled for a political stunt. The chart shows Roderick's heavily armored Visigothic forces facing a Berber army outnumbered 3-1. But mid-battle, the kingdom's internal rot revealed itself. Half of Roderick's noble factions wanted him to fail, so their units abruptly abandoned the field, some even switching sides. The Christian chain of command completely dissolved. What should have been an easy victory turned into a slaughter for the fragmented Visigoths, and King Roderick simply vanished in the chaos. A massive military advantage means nothing if the state fractures at the first sign of pressure. General Tariq realized he had accidentally decapitated the entire kingdom. Without waiting for approval from Damascus, he ignored his original orders and pushed his army north. Within months, Tariq's forces captured major political and cultural hubs like Cordoba and the capital, Toledo. The structural and cultural face of the peninsula began to change immediately. Back in North Africa, Governor Musa panicked. His subordinate was about to take all the credit for taking down a kingdom. To secure his own glory, Musa scrambled to rush his own army across the strait. Personal ambition took the wheel. Tariq's momentum and Musa's jealousy rapidly scaled a border skirmish into a full-blown imperial expansion. This map illustrates the sheer speed of the collapse. In just 7 years, from 711 to 718, nearly the entire Iberian Peninsula fell under Muslim control. The territory was renamed Al-Andalus, firmly erasing a 300-year-old Christian empire from the European map. But a few northern factions stubbornly held on, planting the seeds for a resistance effort that would become known as the Reconquista. History's longest war grew out of a catastrophic political miscalculation that accidentally handed the heart of Europe to an expanding superpower. In the year 720, the Umayyad armies reached the Pyrenees, the massive mountain range separating the empire from the Frankish kingdom, and they simply crossed them. They were pushing directly into sovereign France, moving deep into Septimania, and threatening to alter the entire political map of Europe. Led by veteran commanders, the Muslim forces advanced rapidly. They captured Narbonne, raided Bordeaux, and began moving steadily toward the heart of Gaul. The Islamic world's outward expansion appeared unstoppable, and Western Europe was on the verge of being swallowed by the Caliphate. To stop them, a man named Charles Martel, the CEO of the army for the Franks, formed a disciplined infantry-heavy force. These soldiers were heavily armored and trained to stand their ground rather than yield more territory to the Umayyads. In 732, the two armies met between the cities of Tours and Poitiers. Martel positioned his troops on a wooded hill, and for an entire week, both sides stood their ground in a tense, menacing standoff. When the Muslim cavalry finally attacked, they slammed directly into a dense wall of Frankish shields. Wave after wave of horses and riders threw themselves against the defense line, but the infantry held. In the middle of the chaos, the Umayyad commander was killed. This single loss broke the army's morale. They retreated under the cover of night, abandoning their camp and heading back toward the Pyrenees. After this defeat, the Umayyads judged the cost of invading France too high to repeat, while the Franks focused on consolidating their own kingdom to the north. This mutual withdrawal turned the Pyrenees into a lasting boundary, trapping the geopolitical pressure of the conflict entirely inside the Iberian Peninsula. Inside that peninsula, the situation was shifting. In the misty, isolated mountains of the north, a few Christian households had survived the initial invasion by retreating into the most rugged terrain they could find. A Visigothic noble named Pelayo refused to pay taxes to the new governors. He gathered a scrappy militia of stubborn farmers, ex-soldiers, and monks and ventured deep into the northern valleys. When the Umayyads sent a small force to collect the tax, Pelayo's men used a narrow pass called Covadonga to rain rocks and arrows down on them. The terrain turned the skirmish into a one-sided massacre, forcing the Muslim soldiers to flee. This victory became proof to the northern mountain folk that the Caliphate wasn't invincible. The legend of this survival birthed the narrative of the Reconquista and turned a small collection of mountain settlements into the independent kingdom of Asturias. While the Christians fortified their hills, the wider Muslim world was in turmoil. In 750, a rival clan, Palbi Abbasids, overthrew the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus, moving the capital to Baghdad and massacring the old ruling family. One prince, Abd al-Rahman, managed to escape the slaughter. He spent months in hiding before crossing the Mediterranean and landing in Spain, where many were still loyal to his family's name. In 756, he declared himself the Emir of Córdoba. By doing so, he created an independent Muslim state that was no longer a distant province of Baghdad, but a power loyal only to itself. Under this new leadership, the South became one of the most advanced societies in Europe. They built massive libraries, introduced complex irrigation and algebra, and developed architecture that showcased their immense wealth and engineering skill. In contrast, the northern Christians were living in a world of frontier huts and isolated mountain churches. Their expansion was measured in the reclamation of individual valleys and hills, a slow, generational push to turn their small mountain refuge into a viable state. Two deeply opposed societies were now evolving side by side on a single peninsula, each growing into a superpower defined by its own distinct culture and goals. By the late 800s, that tiny mountain kingdom had grown and splintered into a formidable patchwork of distinct regional powers: Leon, Castile, Navarre, and Aragon. They frequently squabbled, but shared one unified objective: pushing their borders south into Muslim-controlled territory. Down in the south, the Muslims reached their own peak of power. In 929, Abd al-Rahman III elevated Córdoba from an emirate to a caliphate, essentially declaring his nation equal to the great power in Baghdad. This golden age relied on a complex internal balance of Arab elites, Berber soldiers, local converts, and Jewish administrators working to maintain the state's prosperity. The peninsula was now a geopolitical pressure cooker, as the United North prepared to move against the fragile sophistication of the South. The stage was set for Europe's longest war.
In the year 1009, the Muslim system in Iberia started to wobble. Córdoba, the seat of the Caliphate, descended into a brutal civil war that tore its political structure apart. Less than 2 decades later, that unified southern empire shattered into dozens of independent rival city-states, known as taifas. Every local prince constantly undermined each other, Up north, the Christian kingdoms smelled blood. Seeing their enemy split, realms like Leon, Navarre, Castile, and Aragon began pushing south, taking fortresses one by one. The Christian advance moved as a centuries-long slow grind, a strategic chess match of raids, prolonged and bloody sieges, and calculated political betrayals. The northern kingdoms relied on time as their biggest ally, waiting as the typhus exhausted themselves through constant infighting. The catalyst for the Christian reconquest was entirely practical. The south was busy burning itself down, and the north capitalized on their suicidal division.
When border disputes got too hot between the rival Muslim princes, they did something incredibly counterproductive. They paid the Christian kings for protection. Yes, Muslim rulers in Spain were actively funding the northern armies that were literally praying for their downfall. By the 1080s, that northern military machine was stronger and far more organized. In 1085, King Alfonso VI of Castile captured Toledo, the old Visigothic capital. Toledo's fall signaled that the northern kingdoms had transitioned from border skirmishers to a force capable of seizing the historic strategic center of the peninsula. Panicking, the typhus called for help from across the Strait of Gibraltar. The Almoravids answered. They were a hard-line Muslim dynasty from North Africa, cloaked in black veils and mounted on camels, crossing into Iberia to save Al-Andalus. Because they were entirely unified under strict Islamic law, they made an immediate impact. In 1086, they crushed Alfonso VI at Sagrajas, halting the Christian advance for an entire generation. But within a few decades, the Almoravids softened and splintered. They lost their unified zeal, requiring an even stricter movement, the Almohads, to replace them. The Almohads rebuilt the empire, enforced puritanical rule, and handed the Christians another massive defeat in 1195. The pattern was brutal. Whenever Al-Andalus divided domestically, they lost ground. Their only survival strategy was importing absolute radical unity from abroad. The Christian realms realized they could only break the Almohads if they matched that level of cohesion. Castile, Aragon, Navarre, and even French crusaders agreed to a rare moment of total cooperation. They met the Almohad army in 1212 at Las Navas de Tolosa, deep in the Andalusian hills. The fighting was chaotic and brutal, ending when the unified Christian force broke through and shattered the Islamic camp. Over the next century, the Christian kingdoms swallowed up the south. They took the massive, wealthy hubs of Valencia, Seville, and, in 1236, Córdoba itself. That battle in 1212 was the breaking point. The Christians finally unified, and in doing so, permanently destroyed the military backbone of Islamic Spain. By the mid-1200s, only one Muslim kingdom remained. Tucked beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains, Granada survived for 200 extra years by using clever diplomacy, marrying daughters into Christian courts, and paying tribute to Castile. That balancing act collapsed in the late 1400s. Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile married, merging their territories and forming a single Spanish superstate. The newly minted Catholic monarchs decided Granada would be their prize. They launched a grueling 10-year campaign, systematically tightening the noose around the kingdom, fortress by fortress, valley by valley. Finally, on January 2, 1492, the last Muslim ruler of Al-Andalus stood beneath the Alhambra Palace and surrendered his city to Ferdinand and Isabella. The longest conflict in European history finally ended because the fractured north had finally achieved complete geographic and political unification. But you can't build a highly militarized, crusading culture for nearly 8 centuries and just turn it off overnight. Spain had a massive war machine and incredible momentum. That exact same year, in 1492, the unified crown funded an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus. Columbus sailed west under their flag, carrying the exact same fire of conquest that had burned across Iberia. His mission was to plant the newly unified Spanish flag in the Americas. The Reconquista didn't actually end in 1492. It just crossed the Atlantic.